وليا ضرب الخناجر على حكم الندل.
Hi, Tania. How are you? We're delighted to have you with us and be part of the Singapore International Festival of Arts. It's wonderful to see you again.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. The last time we met was at a bar after Garden Speak in New York.
Yeah, like 4 years ago.
Which is a piece I absolutely loved. So we're delighted to have it as part of my final festival in Singapore.
Thank you. I'm glad it's in a special moment.
You know, what's remarkable is all of us have learned to adapt to, like 4 years ago, if I had said, hey, could we have the work remotely? Well, A, I wouldn't have asked that question. B, you would have said it can't be done. So
yeah.
We learned. Yeah. So I'm a big fan of yours. You're the only artist whose work, we have 2 works off in our festival. And we're really happy to have both Garden Speak as far as isolation goes. And I just thought this would be such a lovely opportunity to ask you, tell us about both those works, what you think could be to Singaporean audiences, and then what are the fun and exciting things you're working on next?
Well, I mean, I think both of these works for me are now very relevant to show in the world, especially because of what's happening at the moment in Palestine. As far as isolation goes, started as a collaboration with the Palestinian artist, street artist and musician Bassel Zarra. And the idea when we started working on it in 2016 was when the art world was really interested in what's happening with what they called the refugee crisis in Europe, you know, as if it's a European crisis, not the crisis of the actual refugees. And for us, it was important to bring back the Palestinian issue and story to this conversation, because, you know, people have been over 70 years being refugees in limbo situation, and especially in neighborhood countries. So it was important to have that conversation. And now, obviously, with what's happening with Palestinian people actually exercising all of what we know in theory, or we like to talk about in the art world, you know, decolonization, how to post-colonialism and all of that. And we're actually seeing it in the streets. So for me, it's very relevant. Garden Speak, as you know, it is a performance of mourning, you know, the political performance of mourning, which is usually a very feminist practice to mourn those who were killed by state violence, to remember their stories, to keep them in generations and families. So again, this kind of beginning of uprising and how people put their bodies, their bare bodies in front of state violence, and how high the stakes are, and how can we all support that or carry on telling those stories, feels very relevant right now. I wish I was in person in Singapore, because it's a place that I don't know, and I obviously just know very few things about, and I would love to know more, and I would love to see how people would find those works relevant to their political realities as well. But hopefully I will be hearing from all of you.
Yes, we will find a way to make it happen. Yes, when I first reached out to you to see if we could do these works, obviously the original intent was to have you here and give talks and meet fellow Korean artists and what we do at the festival in general. But yes, we are topsy-turvy world. But what we're thrilled about is our festival's going ahead.
Yeah.
Which Singapore, unfortunately, has just started having a spike in cases. Our shows that are now being, I mean, we've started the festival. We just finished the opening weekend. and it's now having an impact. So, but the beauty of both your works is, as you said, it has a tremendous relevance, especially now, but they're also, from a practical point of view, they are works that can be performed with social distancing. And,
yeah, you know, I heard this from many curators and programmers who, for a very long time, they kept pushing me to create work for large audiences because they liked my work, but they also felt it wasn't that, you know, in terms of revenue, it didn't make a lot of sense. So they were like, why don't you create work for big audiences? And I always resisted it because I wanted to work with interactivity. I wanted to work with deep engagement, with multi-sensory experiences. And these doesn't work usually with like hundreds in the same room. So I always wanted like an intimate piece that it's, you know, kind of innovative in how it works. But now everyone's saying like, we will move towards showing work that actually looks like your work, that have smaller audiences, that is flexible and innovative. And it's funny.
we no, it's very interesting. When everything collapsed for all of us around the world, what, a year ago, so I had to cancel last year's festival, which, you know, it was my last festival, and it was just, and then I was fortunate, they asked me to stay on for this year. And it's just so interesting that, you know, my entire programming direction has changed, right? It's exactly what you're saying. It's finding artists who have work that will work with this new paradigm. It's finding work that's relevant and has a contextual basis now. It's not about, you know, I can't just move everything 2020 to 2021.
Yeah.
I think we all had such a horrific reaction to the idea of, what, you want us to create work digitally? I mean, we're a live medium. And now all of us, how do we do things digitally? Still connect. So I think, yes, for our audiences who are watching this, I think what's beautiful about, as far as isolation goes, is your amazing ability to connect with audiences digitally, and to have that experience with Basil where it's the next best thing to being in the same room.
Thank you. It's a nice compliment.
It's just such a, you know, it's 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's just, and you're online with him, but you're like, wow. I mean, it's a beautiful, beautiful work. We're very happy to have it. And Garden Speak works that we have that is actually a physical experience.
Yeah.
We'll actually go into the room and so I think it was.
And I think what works with Garden Speak and some of the kind of other works that I created recently before the pandemic is the fact that I have been interested for a very long time with works that don't really use performers, but actually perceive the audience as performers. So Garden Speak, I think about it as an installation that becomes a performance when the audience enter that place and activate it. So in that sense, it can work. It can tour without us. It is a piece that can, and it toured also even before the pandemic without me, because it traveled way more than I can actually travel. So that worked by itself. Like, I feel that I was lucky that these pieces, I thought about them before the pandemic as pieces that can become activated by people, and they don't really, because they're stories of someone else, they don't need the physical presence of a performer to channel those stories, but actually it's the absence of the performers that make you kind of connect with the absence of those people who were killed. So I was very much working with that absence, with that kind of just you as an audience and the material. So in that sense, it worked to continue to be live without transforming into the digital realm.
So when you and I spoke last and I approached you about presenting these works in the festival, you were in Lebanon.
Yeah.
Now you're a bard.
Yeah.
With Gideon. Tell us what you've been up to and what your plans are, and I'm pretty sure that at the end of these 2 weeks, you're going to have many new fans in Singapore. So what forward to next?
So I am here at Bard now. I'm directing a new center for human rights and the arts. It's a very exciting new center that has an MA, a master's program for artists, activists, and scholars from all around the world to meet and co-create and co-learn. And we have programming actually also working with activists and artists from all around the world and kind of creating digital work, talks, or physical works. The next festival that happens here, but also elsewhere, really focus on food sovereignty and the right to food in the whole world. And as I mentioned, I created work just before the pandemic called Cultural Exchange Rate. And actually it works a little bit like Garden Speak, where 10 people are invited into a room and they each have a different story that they follow. And it's based on my own family history of being from a border village in Lebanon, between Lebanon and Syria, and then emigrated to Mexico for a while and coming back. So it's like following 100 years of family migration and crossing borders, has a lot of personal archive. And that piece toured for 3 different places, and then the pandemic happened. So it's starting to tour again, which I'm excited about because it's a piece that really is very personal. So I'm excited about that, and I have some, ideas to start working on it probably next year when things are a bit calmer. That's it.
Wonderful. Well, I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you.
We're very, very, very happy to have the works here. And besides working from a practical point of view, it's just, as you said, the resonance at this particular moment in time with what's the world, they've become even more important. So I'm sure our audiences are going to go on the same journey that I went on when I experienced them both for the first time. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
We hope to have you in Singapore soon.
I would love that.
Let's keep chatting and figure out how we make things happen when we are all allowed to see each other again in person.
Yeah, I would love that. Thank you so much. And thanks for everyone who would see the work and experience it. And, I hope to see you all in person soon.
We'll make it happen. All right. You take care. Thank you.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
Okay, bye.
ضرب الخناجر على حكم الندل بيه